name is Mark Glicini, and I am a fifth-year professional lacrosse player, a mental coach, a certified nutritionist, and certified fitness trainer. I run my own company called Mark Glicini Peak Performance, and I work underneath Dr. Rob Gilbert, who will be joining me today for our conversation about competing with yesterday's me and the inner journey to excellence. I'm going to share my philosophy on training from a holistic approach, not just the mental part, but also physical strength and conditioning and everything that I feel applies to becoming a better athlete, a better student athlete, and a better overall person. So with that introduction, I want to introduce Dr. Rob Gilbert, who's my main mentor. I was fortunate enough to meet Dr. Rob Gilbert 2 or 3 years ago. He was introduced to me by my first mental coach, Brian Kane, while I was a junior at Yale University. A little bit more background about me. I am from North Jersey, Mahwah, New Jersey. I played 4 years of lacrosse at Mahwah High School. Our first year wasn't even a varsity program. So my sophomore year in high school was my first taste on leading a young team. And I feel like I will get into that part of my story, but that was a big impression on me in terms of growth. After 4 years at Mahwah High School, I did 1 year at Deerfield Academy in Western Massachusetts for a prep year before 4 years of varsity lacrosse at Yale, 2 years in Manhattan working at BGC Partners. I graduated as an economics major from Yale, and then I made the leap of faith, called up Brian Kane, my mental coach, when I was a junior at Yale, and he put me in touch with Dr. Rob Gilbert. So I drove out to New Jersey, showed up at Dr. Rob Gilbert's graduate applied sports psychology class, took it for the entire semester, started showing up early and staying late, befriended Dr. Rob Gilbert, and now he's not only a good mentor for me, but also one of my very good friends. And we talk every single day. And we call ourselves soldiers. And I would say he's my lieutenant in the war against average. So Dr. Rob Gilbert, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you. And the reason that Mark wants me to be here with you is because Mark lies all the time. Now, he's not a liar. He just underestimates. I mean, he said, what did you say? You're a fifth-year lacrosse player? He is the hardest working athlete in the world. When I see him work out, it's not impressive. It's scary. So Mark and I wrote a book last weekend. And you might be, wow, you guys wrote a book on a weekend. Well, it's called Gilbert and Glicini's one-word book on how to be extremely successful. So Gilbert and Glicini's one-word book on how to be extremely successful. And we'll give a copy of the book to anybody that could guess what the one word is. If you want to be extremely successful in school, what's the one word? If you want to be extremely successful in sports, is there any way, Mark, for them to type in stuff or anything?
They can type over throughout. I don't know how quick the response will be, and hopefully they can type in. But just give them a couple seconds to think about it.
You know, we'll give you a free copy of the book if you can figure out what the one word is. So what Mark and I want to do today is we don't want to give a good talk. We don't say, hey, yeah, that was an interesting talk. If you say that was thought-provoking, we failed. We want to be action-provoking. We want to do stuff today that as soon as you get off the call, you're training harder. You're doing something you wouldn't normally do. If you're going to run a mile, you're going to run 4 miles. So do we get any responses yet? Because people usually don't get, oh, there it is, commitment. That's a good word.
Curiosity, work ethic, grit, motivation, and mindset are 6 that came through.
Those are excellent, but they're not the right answer. Gilbert and Glicini's one-word book on how to be extremely successful in anything, the word is extreme. You've got to be extreme. You have to do things that other people won't do so you can get things other people won't get, okay? So let me tell you one story about school. I've been a college professor at Montclair State University for 40 years. And in all that time, I've only had one student that ever graduated with a perfect 4.0 average. Her name was Melissa Sapio. She took 44 courses. She was a psychology major. She took 44 courses and she got 44 A's. She never even got an A-. So when she speaks to my classes, which she does all the time, and she tells how she did it, she said, well, when I started college, I decided that no matter what my professors asked me to do, no matter what assignments I was given, I was going to do more than expected. Meaning that if her math professor said, okay, the assignment for next time is to do problems 1, 3, and 5, Melissa would do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If the history professor said the assignment for next time is to read chapters 1 and 2, Melissa would do 1 and 2 and part of 3. So whether it's sports, whether it's school, the answer is to do more than expected. So tell us about your roommate, Mark. Did he do something more than expected over the Memorial Day weekend?
Absolutely. And I think it falls right in line with the title of this talk, Competing with Yesterday's Me, because everybody out here, and the reason why this community service project was started is because everybody's dealing with loss. So that'll be a reoccurring theme in the fact that we're all dealing with loss. We all lost our season, our routine, our everyday 9 to 5, our schedule that's forced upon us, whether that's going to school as a student or going to work as a business person. And I have a best friend named Anka Tezjan, who a year and a half ago didn't know how to competitively swim and now is a top 5% Ironman athlete. And that's who I like to surround myself with. Over the past weekend, he decided to go down the Schuylkill River, 112 miles with 2 of his friends. And I asked him why. And he said, for no reason, just other than the journey, to learn. And I said, what did you learn on the back half of that 112 miles? Well, he said, I learned how to row, I learned how to read a river, and I learned what it's going to take from a mental perspective to stay up for 40 hours straight. And that's just a taste of the people that I like to surround myself with. And my first taste of loss came my senior year in high school when I got a stress fracture in my lower spine, and I was coming off an even better year, my junior year. I was North Jersey Player of the Year as an ex-attackman, and I had set the point record in lacrosse, and I was expecting having an even better season. And I spent the whole year as a player's coach in a hard brace from my pectorals to my tailbone. And it made me look inside myself and find other journeys to compete against my prior self. So things that I poured myself into were writing, academics, and others. I found a way to lead other people, not just physically, but talk to them out loud. So that'll be a reoccurring theme. And to get back to answering Doc's question is something that you always want to keep in mind is to train and to compete, not for a means to an end, but to find those people that want you to be a better version of yourself. And I think the definition of a friend can be summarized in those that want the best for you. And this is an excellent time, not only to prepare yourself, as we'll talk about going forward. We don't want this to be thought-provoking. We want this to be action-provoking. And more than half that battle is won by your immediate environment and your closest relationships.
Perfect. And your friends could be the people that drive you forward, but unfortunately, they could also be the people that hold you back. You're going to work out and they want to hang out. You know, they're going to hold you back if you hang out with them. You know, you want to study, they want, oh, come on, go to sleep. It's too late. So you have to select friends who are also extreme. And what I mean by extreme is I don't know if most of you in college, I think most of you in high school. So when you get to college, I have a goal for you. You might not know what this goal is, but I'd like you to check it out. I want you to win a Rhodes Scholarship. A Rhodes Scholarship is like the Academy Award, the Tony, the Emmy. It's like only 34 college seniors win the award every year. They win a 2-year fellowship to go to one of the greatest universities in the world, Cambridge and Oxford, or Oxford in England. But only 34 people win it. Like former President Bill Clinton won one. You know, Cory Booker, a U.S. Senator from New Jersey, won one. So there were only 34, but that's an extreme goal. To graduate from college is not an extreme goal. What's your goal? I just want to graduate. No. We want something more extreme than that. Because if you have extreme goals, you'll have to take extreme actions. And I'm talking about extreme, getting yourself to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And there is no better person in the whole world to talk about being uncomfortable than my good friend Mark Glicini. Why don't you talk about that?
Sure. And I think that's a perfect segue into what I believe is the most powerful thing in the world, which is momentum. And going back to that 18th year of my life, I also had my mother who was diagnosed with lymphoma. So I'm in a hard cast, but also dealing with emotional and mental battles as well, because not everything's okay on the home front. And that was my first taste of the importance of the mental battle and the mental game. And I didn't even realize it at the time because I was such a young individual, but I started looking for outlets. right? And I think a lot of life can be summarized in our routines, our rituals, and our relationships. And my rituals at the time led into positive routines. And I was very uncomfortable in that moment. I started asking the question, why me, right? Because I was not only physically in a weak state, but also mentally. So I turned to writing. I turned to pouring my competitive fire into the classroom. And then I found out that there was this correlation and alignment between my brain, my mind, and my body once I started working out in the weight room and training and breaking a sweat. I saw that when I was able to push weight off me physically, I was also pushing it off me mentally. And that was my first taste of turning to writing as well. And when I did that, I was able to pour negative energy off me. And I was dealing with an uncomfortable situation the right way. And there's many, many ways to go that are wrong. But by pouring yourself into paper, whether it's for a therapeutic side of getting negative energy out of your body, or for a goal setting, right? Human beings are activated by having an aim, right? By goal setting. So whether you want to do it to feel better or to goal set, I think writing your goals down, making them public and making them personal, it's the start that stops most people. And where you go from there, and this right now, where we're all stuck at home looking for ways to get better, it really starts with doing a little, a lot, rather than a lot, a little, right? And that just means if you're not a writer, maybe just write a couple words to a sentences down, right? And over time, what will happen is you'll start writing pages, right? And then we talk about the physical side, maybe walk the block. And then soon enough, by the end of the week, you'll be walking the neighborhood. And then that walk will turn into a run, right? And you have to believe in that power of the momentum, because it's the only way to live in a way that will not lead to injury and burnout, right? So the opposite of doing a little, a lot is doing a lot, a little, right? Trying to work out for 2 times a week for 4 hours. That's extreme burnout, and you'll be sore physically and at a risk of an injury, right? And just like that could happen physically, it definitely happens emotionally and mentally as well. So something that I've always turned to is, when somebody asks me, how often do you train? How often do you work out? I say every day. I say I sweat every single day, whether it's a mental sweat or a physical sweat. And why? It's only to upkeep, to maintain, and then to grab hold of the most powerful thing in the world, momentum. And like Doc just mentioned, and where I want to circle back to, is a quote that you teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are, right? And we talked about relationships very early on, but if you want to reproduce friends and peers around you, and if you're a captain or a teacher or want to be a leader, in order to have offspring, to have students, to have a team of people believe in you, you have to have that authenticity factor. You have to grab momentum and say, yes, this is what I do every day. I show up. And it's more than half the battle, right? It's close to 80%, right? It's just showing up. And once you're able to show up, you start having that authenticity of somebody that shows up, and people can count on you, especially in a time like this where everything feels like the ground is falling out beneath your feet. Is you give people hope, right? And hope stands for, as Doc has said multiple times, hold on, possibilities exist, right? So by having that hope, by grasping momentum, you're able to give other people hope in return. So I wouldn't even say at this point I am uncomfortable in training every single day. I've crossed that bridge from discipline to desire a long time ago. And I feel like the only times I feel like it's a hardship for me, right, in that state of I have to, or I got to do this workout or do this work of some sort, I've crossed it over into I get to and I want to. And that magical bridge between discipline and desire only comes in a 4-letter word of time, right? If you love something, you'll be time invested, right? A young little kindergarten girl was asked to spell the word love, and she spelled it Time. And who's to say she's wrong, right? Because everything that we love in this life, right, the priority side of this is everything we love, we spend that time on it. And not just spend it, we invest it. And yes, I do invest my time in being uncomfortable. And in turn, it allows me to be a leader for others. And I'll grow myself from a weak individual, 155 pounds as a freshman in high school, to now a peak performing athlete and playing professional lacrosse.
So what was that quote again, Mark, that you said about we reproduce who we are?
yes, you teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are. And I believe you can look on the internet and find all this different bits of knowledge, right? But at the end of the day, right, knowledge minus action is nothing, right? So it's really important to make sure that you gather that knowledge, but then take action, right?
Well, let me give you another quote, because if you're motivated enough to get on this podcast or whatever it is, a seminar in late May on a Friday afternoon, you're probably a leader, you're probably a captain, you're probably the leader of your team. So here's a quote: "A team of lions led by a lamb will always lose to a team of lambs led by a lion. A team of lions led by a lamb will always lose to a team of lambs led by a lion." So that means you have to be the lion. You know, of course, a team of lions led by a lion will be unstoppable, but you have to put in more time. You have to put in more effort. You have to be more extreme than anybody else, and then people will gravitate towards you. You'll be a true leader, but it all starts with you. It doesn't
Doc,
start with anybody
Doc,
else.
let's turn to the chat and ask the group here if we can get a response. Why is the lion the king of the jungle? Why is the lion the king of the jungle? I'll give everybody 5-10 seconds. Anybody who's able to reach into the chat. He's the hungriest mentally. Protection. He doesn't fear anything. His voice, because he has pride. He's aware of his surroundings. We have a bunch of great answers here, Doc. He's the hungriest. Protection, because he says he is. He doesn't fear anything. His voice, because of his pride. He's aware of his surrounding. It's fierce, courageous, and powerful.
Those are all great answers.
Those are all great answers, and one of them hit it right on the head. Is that a lion is extreme. There's nothing that a lion won't hunt, right? So the lion is not the strongest, it's not the fastest, and it's not the biggest, right? That's the cheetah, the elephant, and the gorilla, right? Eyes in the front, like to hunt. There you go, Doc. That's something to work off of. But that's absolutely correct. The lion is the king of the jungle for one reason, and it's because there's nothing it won't hunt, right? It's not the biggest, the fastest, and the strongest, but there's nothing it won't hunt. And that just goes to show that our biggest present, our biggest prize, our biggest gift is right inside of us. And everybody's heard of the term, have a heart of the lion. It's for that reason. It's for that exact reason. And you can continue to go. Why would a team of lambs led by a lion always beat a team of lions but led by a lamb, Doc?
Well, I would just guess that we got a little response from Joe. Joe, you're probably a wrestler, and he probably goes to Wrestling Mindset. And Gene Zanetti from Wrestling Mindset has found that there are two types of animals in the jungle. There are predators and there are prey. You know, predators are the ones that have goals and go after it, and prey are the ones that hide. And in checking with zoologists, Gene Zanetti found out that predators have eyes in the front of the head, and prey, you know, bunnies, rabbits, chipmunks, deer, have the eyes on the side of the head. So his quote is, "Eyes in the front like to hunt and eyes on the side like to hide." Eyes in the front like to hunt and eyes on the side like to hide. So what I'd like you to do is get a mirror right now and take the most important test of your life. See if your eyes are in the front of your head. Are you a predator, or the eyes are in the side of your head? And you don't have to get a mirror, because I'll tell you the answer. Your eyes are in the front. That means every cell in your body, every neuron in your brain, every bone, every tissue, every muscle is programmed to be a predator, to go after what you want. So don't work against your natural inclination. You were born to be a predator, and don't let this little voice in your mind talk you out of it. And you do have a little voice in your mind. Matter of fact, when I mentioned the little voice in your mind and asked you if you have a little voice in your mind, if some little voice says, "There's no little voice up here," that's the little voice I'm talking about. So how do you get yourself out of the little voice, Mark?
That's a great question. And one of the ways that I met Dr. Glicini Versari, and if she's listening, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to pass on my philosophy and what I believe. I was out in San Diego and I was playing for the San Diego Seals. I've actually got Dr. Rob Gilbert in in the jersey right there. He's got the San Diego Seals jersey on. There it is. And I was fortunate to have a character coach who was a Navy SEAL for 2 decades. And him and I had routine coffees together in which we were talking about leadership. And this is something I love to do, is to talk with people like Dr. Rob Gilbert about the difference, right? What's going to make the difference in good to great? What's going to make the difference in today? How do we own the day, right? One of the books I want to that comes to mind by me even saying those words out loud is Own the Day, Own Your Life. By Aubrey Marcus. There's strategies in there that you can really take away. But getting to the point, my character coach was named Ben Ives, and something that he talks about is searching for information rather than affirmation, especially in a time like this where you can be surrounded by such negativity. Oh, I don't like that I can't go outside. I don't like that I can't connect with people. I don't like that I can't do the things that I've always done, right? And we get in the feedback loop of affirmation, right? When we need to challenge ourselves to search for information. So when I hear about a lion's mentality, I don't think about it in just a physical stature. I think about it as a hunter-gatherer of information. The second thing that Ben Ives talks about is be a ridgeline thinker. I love that idea, right? Rather than stay within your home of thought, right? What does your thought life look like? And go out and be a hunter-gatherer of information. To me, the mental game, what it's all about is taking your dogma, taking your truth, taking what you already believe and extending it by searching for podcasts, searching for books of information that can make you a better peak performer. And then lastly, Ben Ives talks about with all his Navy SEALs in a leadership workshop for 1 week, that inside of our mind, 5 things are happening all at once. We have our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts, our physiology, and our performance. And we cannot control our emotion and our feelings. And it's very, very important in this time to not match who we are with our emotions and our feelings, because there will be days when we're frustrated. There will be times when we're sad and we are upset. But what does our thought life look like, right? What does our action and our performance look like? There's a beautiful TED Talk by Amy Cuddy on the art and the power of power poses. And that just means getting bigger, right? Every time we get bigger with our posture, our physiology has a boost in testosterone and a decrease in cortisol, our stress hormone, right? So there are these little wins that we can find throughout our day by being a ridgeline thinker, by being a hunter and gatherer of information, not just affirmation. And lastly, coming to understand that if we have a commitment, I love that that word was in here in the chat earlier, if we have a commitment to be better than our prior self, there's no feelings involved in that, right? And that's searching for the truth, right? That's not searching for an emotion, right? And there's things that we always circle back to when we're talking to other people in the war against average. Doc will always say this, is actions change your attitude, movements change your moods, and motions change your emotions. It's the start that stops most people. If you are feeling down emotionally, if you're feeling sad from a feeling perspective, sometimes the best thing that you can do is to start to take action, right? Because those actions will change your attitude. That answers the question for me, Doc, is when I want to get uncomfortable and when I want to continue to search for more information to be better than my prior self, there's an inner journey going on for me. And I know that I can increase the joy in my life and then the joy in others' lives by searching for more information rather than affirmation.
So Mark said, actions change attitudes, motions change emotions, movement change moods. That means it's much easier to act yourself into a certain way of thinking than to think yourself into a certain way of acting. So if you're going to say, well, when I feel like working out, then I'm going to work out. No, you work out, then you'll feel like working out. Most people, they think they smile because they're happy. No, you're happy because you smile. You start smiling, your emotions are going to get happier. So when Mark and I give live talks, if we were actually in front of a room talking with you, here's what we'd do right now. Mark would say, rate your energy level right now on a scale of 1 to 10. And you don't have to tell anybody, just 10, it's the highest it's ever been in your life, and 1, it's the lowest you've ever been. And you say, but just remember the number. And then for the next couple of minutes, we would play a game with you. The game is called Simon Says. Now, we know it's a silly game, but it has a purpose. So we'd say, Simon says, put your hands in the air. We'd play it for maybe 2 minutes. And then at the end of the game, would say, how many of you, your energy level went up? And 90% of the people that energy level went up. Why? Because you moved and you had a few laughs. You giggled a little bit. So your actions did change your attitudes. Your emotions did change your moods. Your movements, your actions change your attitude. Your emotions change your emotions, and your movements change your moods. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd just like to stop for a second and do a little advertisement. Mark wanted to do this. Mark has an incredible podcast. You want to tell us about your podcast? Because Ben Ives is on your podcast.
Yes. Episode 6 of my podcast with Ben Ives was life-changing for me. I went to go edit and listen to it for the first time, and he bears his soul. He talks about some deep things about leaving legacy and what it takes. And the name of my podcast is Grateful and Full of Greatness with Mark Glicini. So it's Grateful and Full of Greatness with Mark Glicini. It's on Apple Podcasts. And what I look to do is have conversations like this with people that live their lives with the pursuit of greatness in mind. And I'm a firm believer in it's not about where we are located, right? It's where we're going. Life is all about trajectory. And that's very important to remember, and especially in a time like this, where we're very cooped up in one location for most of the time. There's a Navy SEAL, going back to another Navy SEAL, people that live their life in a commitment phase, not in a feeling phase. Clint Bruce does a talk all throughout the United States called All the Way Home. And it's a tribute to our military. But in that talk, he talks about the difference between being here and being home, right? And then in episode number 9, I sit down with 30-year coach at Deerfield Academy and one of the winningest high school lacrosse coaches in the country ever, Chip Davis. And he talks about the same idea that you have to build your home. And what he means is not construction-wise. He means up here, right? What does your home look like? How fortified is it? And something that I want to navigate away from and then come back or get tangential for a moment is I listened to a beautiful podcast by Robin Sharma. And he gives 4 ways to increase self-love. And those ways are honor your special, do something difficult daily, go to the woods, and help others. And one of those 4 is guaranteed to hit home with you. And the difference between here and home is when you're here, you're at a location. When you're home, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You just feel composed, right? You feel in control. And that comes from preparation, right? It has much less to do with your actual emotions, and it has a lot to do with your actions changing your attitude. And there's very little, especially nowadays, that you can control, but you can control your attitude and ways in which to do that, right? We want this talk, again, not to be thought-provoking, to be action-provoking, is honor your special. What do you do? What are your rituals that may give you mental clarity? I know for me, it's sometimes going to get a haircut. For my sister or mother, sometimes it's reading a book that they love, or going to get their nails done or get their haircut, right? So everybody has their special. The second thing is do something difficult daily. And that's different for everybody. But if you don't feel like you have the strength, sometimes your mental health requires you to do multiple easy tasks, right? Rather than just do one arduous task, do multiple easy tasks to give you the power to do that difficult task. And lastly, so I can drive this home and turn it back over to Doc without being too long-winded, is go to the woods. That means rather than be cooped up but with your phone and technology and lights and all of this and outside noise from those around you, go to the woods, go to the water if you're near it, right? Get closer to your breath, get closer to your thought life. By you doing that, you'll come back from that walk to the woods or that walk to the water, and you'll feel more at peace, right? And that will give you strength to take on the rest of the day if you're feeling down. And then the fourth is very easy to do. That's help others. One of the things that I said in my acceptance speech for Premier Lacrosse League Teammate of the Year award is it's so important to set your goals with others in mind. Because when the going gets tough, and everybody knows right now it is tough, when it does get tough, your why is the most important to keep going. Like what Doc and I are talking about, I feel like we are the how-to guys when talking about applied psychology, right? We want to get your action going to change your attitude. But when it's very, very hard to act and our how is struggling and we feel stuck, we must turn to our why. And it's got to be for other people. It's got to be for our family, our loved ones, or maybe some people or a group of people that are struggling.
I'm looking at the names. I wonder if Mark Lombardi is the great wrestling coach. Huh. I hope it is. Okay, so we're about half done. So we want to give you a midterm exam. So get a pen and a piece of paper. Everybody get a pen and a piece of paper. We'll give you about 10 seconds to get a pen and a piece of paper so you can take the midterm exam. Okay? So here's the midterm exam. What I want you to do, don't start yet, is I want you, when I say go, I want you to draw a triangle. You see triangle? That's a triangle. I want you to draw as many triangles as you can in 20 seconds. Don't start yet. I'll say ready, set, go, then I'll tell you to stop, okay? So ready, on your mark, get set, go. Five, four, three, two, one. Okay, count up the number of triangles and type them in. Send them to Mark. Let's hear how many you got.
35, 6, 23, 24, 18, 21, 15, 13, 16, 22, 21. Tell them what the record is, Doc.
Well, those are all above average scores, but you know, Mark and I are currently teaching a graduate class on applied sports psychology. And to pass the class, if you want to pass that class, you have to be able to write or draw 80 in 20 seconds. So you have to get 80 to pass our course. And you're going around saying, oh, how am I going to get 80? And then somebody says, oh, you got to draw triangles fast. There's this expert on drawing triangles. He teaches a place in New Jersey called Montclair State University. His name is Gilbert. So you call me up and you come over to my office and you, Dr. Gilbert, I gotta learn how to draw 80 triangles in 20 seconds. What could I do? And I said, well, how are you doing it now? And you're showing me how should I draw them smaller? Should I have a lighter pen? And I said, no. What I want you to do is I want you to draw a 5-pointed star. See the 5-pointed star? There are 5 triangles there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what I want you to do, when I say go, I want you to draw one 5-pointed triangle, a 5-pointed star, a second for 20 seconds. So let me get that right. I just want you to draw, you might want to take a couple of practice swings. One 5-pointed star, a second for 20 seconds, okay? So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, that's a 5-pointed star. Okay, ready? On your mark, get set, go. Five, four, three, two, one, stop. Now, don't count the triangles, count the stars and count how many stars you have, and then multiply the number of stars you have by 5. And send us how many you have. Send us the number you have now, especially if you have more than 80. 70, close. 100, good. 85, 90, 100.
Awesome.
Okay, now, we were just making up, you know, the number 80. But look what just happened. And Mark's going to tell you about this. You didn't just experience improvement, you just experienced breakthrough. Going from 20 to 100 is not an improvement, it's a breakthrough. So what I want you to think about is what do you have to do in your life not to have an improvement? Because basically improvement is boring. Breakthrough is exciting. Breakthrough, people who have breakthroughs make the history books. So that's, you want to add to that a little bit, Mark?
Absolutely. And I would say things that come to mind for me is I brought up really early on Aubrey Marcus's book, Own the Day, Own Your Life. And that's what this whole talk should be about, right? Owning this day so that it's better than yesterday. And something that I've taken from that book was having 32 ounces of water every single morning. And by having 32 ounces of water every single morning before I do anything else, science has proven that is 10 to 20% more productive, right? Think about it. And the way that Aubrey Marcus puts it, I really love the metaphor that he uses in the book is, think about it. You just went 6 to 9 hours without your body having any water. that 32 ounces of water is a cool bath for your organs. And that was a really cool breakthrough strategy. Was it anything that was arduous or tough to do? No, but it was one little strategy that I could add to my life to increase my productivity. And that's what we all want to be, is more productive. If we're more productive as individuals, we can be more productive for our friends and for our family. So the whole point of that exercise, improvement versus breakthrough, is life is a strategy game, right? And I've been in those dark times, like I talked about in high school, where I took on a fixed mindset, right? Yale graduate and psychologist Carol Dweck talks about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And all it is the belief that you can change, right? And there's the same way that your muscles can get bigger and stronger and you can get faster, the mind can do that as well through neuroplasticity. Right? What a cool thing to do to search is neuroplasticity. That word itself gives you hope once you understand what it is that if you take in more information and learn new strategies, you can improve, right? And I've been over to Japan twice, and I was over there teaching lacrosse to university students. And they have a word over there called Kaizen, and it means continuous and incremental improvement. And I believe that should be everybody's goal. And I came back. I thought I was going to go over there and do the teaching, but I came back with that word, Kaizen. And I said, that's what life's all about. And what you find is, once you understand that life's a strategy game, you take this staircase all the way to the top of wherever goal, whoever you want to be. And that's a really good segue into talking about, there's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And James Clear talks about having an identity crisis. And a lot of us are having that identity crisis right now. Who are we if we're not this job? Who are we if we're not a provider in this way, right? And what we find is that word who really can force us to change, right? And I remember losing my physical capacity to be a peak performing athlete in high school. And that's where I had my identity crisis for the first time. That's where I turned to the mental game and said, okay, I got to figure out the strategies to get rid of this negative energy and to become better. So to circumvent back to that staircase to who we want to be at the top, that who, right? It's very, very important to know who. But before we take that first stair, we have to know why. Why are we even taking this staircase to that who, right? And then all along the way, like Doc Gilbert just talking about, every stair is how. If you want to do something in life, if you want something that is better than your current state, if you want to be bigger, faster, stronger, or more capable, you have to find the people that are already doing what you want to do and follow their strategies like a 5-pointed star.
So how many of you are either in college right now or you're going to college in September? Just write in to put in yes.
Or work, Doc, or work.
Well, I'm talking about something a little different.
Grad school. Oh, a lot of grad school. Yes. You have 10, 11.
Graduate school?
Yeah, no, you have about 15 going on 20. Yes, they are in school.
Okay. So whether you're in middle school or high school or college or graduate school, I want to give you a strategy for how you could be outrageously successful in college, in graduate school, in professional school, anywhere. Now listen closely before the little voice in your mind turns me off. I've done a lot of research on this. There are no difficult colleges. There are no difficult universities. Oh, I know you say, oh, MIT is really difficult. Oh, Yale's really difficult. No, they're not. There are no difficult majors. Oh, electrical engineering is really difficult. No, it isn't. Chemistry is really difficult. No, it isn't. There are no difficult professors. You said, oh, you don't know Professor so-and-so at my school. There are no difficult courses. Oh, organic chemistry is really. So what am I getting at? There's no difficult colleges, no difficult universities, no difficult majors, no difficult professors, no difficult courses. They're only time consuming. Organic chemistry isn't difficult, it's time consuming. Being an electrical engineering major isn't difficult, it's time consuming. It's the same in sports. Learning skills is not difficult, it's time consuming. Don't confuse difficult with time consuming, because that gets defeating. You start defeating yourself once you have that mindset. So Mark, tell us about some skills that you've developed that took tremendous amounts of time.
Well, you and I always go back and forth on what is the most important element to excellence. What is it, right? Is it awareness? Is it belief? Is it curiosity, discipline, desire, faith, empathy, grit, all the things that have been deliberate practice? That's good. But I think when you understand your why, it's so important to be insatiably curious. If you are curious, right? If you are curious and searching for information, and I know that's something that I'm going back to, but I'm going back to it on purpose. It allows you to have that intention, right? The only thing that separates us from the phone that we have is we can set our intention and be focused, right? A computer and our phones can listen to what we want it to do, but we have the ability to be intentional with our action. So I always come back to this is the three most important words that you can say to another individual are not "I love you," perhaps that's second. It's "tell me more," right? Nick Saban, Alabama football coach, says that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We should listen twice as much as we speak. And we should ask that word, "tell me more," or say that more often, "tell me more," right? And search, be a hunter-gatherer more and more and more. And what does that require? It's very time-consuming. Very, very time-consuming. So going back to the 3 R's that I talked about, routines, rituals, and relationships, who are you prioritizing? What are you prioritizing, right? And I think when you look at peak performance, right, or reaching peak performance, and if you look at the statistic, I was just talking to Dr. Molinaro about this yesterday, he says that an athlete reaches their peak performance 10 to 15% of the time, right? And the rest of the time they're searching for that white moment, right? So what does that mean? Is you search for those little moments of white moments, those peak performance states. But how do you get there? And I think it's preparation, and preparation how? By being insatiably curious about what you want. Right? Doc always challenges me to be a meaningful specific, not a wandering generality, right? To know what you want, to write that down, to make it public with your closest friends. Ben Ives, the character coach that I brought up before, he always challenges me to remain aspirational, right? To the point where your goals make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. They make you uncomfortable to share to other people, right? So what I've become comfortable or more comfortable with, because there's never really this state of full comfort zone, is I say idealistic dreams, these goals that are far reaching, right? I want this, I want that, I want that, I want that. And over time, you cross that bridge where it's very, very challenging and it takes a high level of discipline and you reach desire. And I think being self-aware is very important, right? Choosing faith over fear is very, very important. But life is a strategy game and it's very, very time consuming. But searching for information by being curious is perhaps the separating factor that I've used to get to the next level. And the simple story that I'll end with before turning it back over to you is when I was going into Yale, I had never watched film before. I was transitioning from an ex-attackman in lacrosse to the defensive side of the ball. And I was using my superior conditioning and athleticism to play short stick defensive midfielder. Anybody who knows lacrosse knows that position. And my defensive coordinator was challenging me to watch more film. And then at first it was like pulling teeth. I was calling him a dentist because I hated going in and watching film so repeatedly. But over the course of 4 years, I found myself saying to the gentleman on my team, "You must watch film. You must watch film," because it goes into preparation, that curiosity aspect. And it made me a better short stick defensive midfielder. So my competitive fire and my physical conditioning allowed me all the way through college to get to that peak performance state. But when I took a grasp of the mental game and started searching for information rather than affirmation or people telling me that I'm good or great or whatever, that allowed me to go to another level. And that's what life's all about, that Kaizen, searching for that other level by no matter what your title is at work or at school, no matter what everybody says, you remain coachable and a student of the game.
Andrea Johnson said, "My son totally figured out your star thing before he said it." Andrea, your son's a genius. Mark, you know who's on this call with us?
Who's this?
Boy, can you believe
Who?
that? What do you mean who?
I didn't hear you.
Chris Lavoie is. I can't believe he should be doing this. He shouldn't be listening to us. We should be listening to him. Why don't you write into us? What do you want to hear a story about? What do you want to hear a story about? Just write in something that you want to hear a story about. Any good stuff come up?
Track and field. Searching for information.
Track and field. Okay, a track and field.
Non-opinion.
Let me tell you about one of the greatest and one of the earliest track and field stars in America's history. In 1956, Wilma Rudolph won 3 gold medals at the Olympic Games. I think it was in Melbourne in 1956. First American woman to win 3 gold medals in track and field. She was not even 20 years old. 16 years before that, she came down with polio and she was in a wheelchair. Her doctors told her she would never walk again. So after she is a superstar and she's being interviewed and somebody knew her story and they said, how did you ever go from polio in a wheelchair to the greatest Olympic runner in history? She said, well, when I was 4 years old, my doctors told me I'd never walk again. My mother told me I would, so I believed my mother. When I was 4 years old, my doctors told me I would never walk again. My mother told me I would, so I believed my mother. So who are you believing? Are you believing the people who want the best for you? Or are you believing the people who are just playing it safe? Like, don't get your hopes up too much. Oh, you might, don't apply to that school. You might, what if you don't get in? Don't go out for that team. What if you don't go out for the team? Apply for the school. I had a student a few years ago and she wanted to talk about graduate school. And I said, well, where do you want to go? And she said, well, I'm applying to Kane and William Patterson, 2 colleges, 2 universities in New Jersey. I said, that's nice. Where do you want to go? She said, I'm applying to Kane and William Patterson. I said, well, that's nice. Where do you want to go? She said, well, I really want to go to Columbia University. I said, well, apply. If you really want to go there, apply. 2 years later, I get an email from her. She just got her 2nd master's degree from Columbia. And if I didn't say apply, so what's holding you back? Sometimes it's just that little voice in your mind. So one thing for sure, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So if you want to apply to an Ivy League school, at least allow the admissions office to reject you. Don't reject yourself. You know, if you want to be on the team, try out. Let the coach cut you. Don't cut yourself. That's the saddest thing. When we cut ourselves, we don't give ourselves the opportunities. We're too afraid of being disappointed. You should get disappointed. You build up your resilience muscles by fighting through disappointment. So we have any more questions? Any more?
Chris Boy wants water, fire, and trust.
Boy. Chris, why don't you tell a story? Could you get on? Could you unmute yourself? I don't know if you can.
No, it's just you and I.
Okay. This is dedicated to Chris Lavoie, Florida. Fire, water, and trust are walking in the woods. And one of them screamed out, hey, what are we going to do if we get lost from each other? And Fire said, just look for the smoke. That's where I'll be. And Water said, oh, just look for the green grass. That's where I'll be. And Trust said, you better not lose me, because if you lose me, you'll never find me again. You better not lose me, because if you lose me, you'll never find me again.
One of the points on trust that I want to drive home is the importance of open and effective communication. There's a transitive property that if you want undying commitment from whatever team it is, whether it's within your family, whether it's a part of a sports team or at work, your team at work, in order to build trust and to build commitment, I think there's many different ways to go about it, but it really starts with open and effective communication. I know throughout my time at the professional ranks, there's been games where I didn't play, and I've always been able to look at those coaches that looked me in the eye and said, listen, you're not going to play for this reason, that reason, or the other. And having that communication to me, that honest and effective communication, never let that trust die. And I was always willing to remain undyingly committed to the team because of that open and effective communication. And I think that gets lost in the sauce a little bit, that routines, rituals, and relationships, on top of being a great listener and being curious, one way to build trust and commitment within your relationships, and now more than ever, is to remain open and effective with your communication, right? reaching out and, to old friends, to coaches, and something that I do from a gratitude perspective that my sister gave me for Christmas is a 5-minute gratitude book, right? You can find them on Amazon, but that gets me writing. And that was a small little thing that made me want to write even more and more and more, right? So one of the questions I'm seeing here about goal setting and how that changes through the different stages of athletics, it's a great question, because why you start is usually not the same reason by the time you're deep into your career. One of my really good friends, Brody Merrill, who's one of the best lacrosse players in the game and probably the best defenseman to ever play, he's 17 years into the league, right? And he's had to find different reasons to stay involved and chasing new things. Right now he's got 3 kids and his oldest is 12. So life has certainly changed all along his trajectory and his journey. What I would say about the goal setting is to remain very specific, right? But not overwhelming. I think a lot of people love to do one or the other, set smaller goals and they always hit it, or they set really, really big goals and they forget to do the stairs all along the way. So what I would say is it's very important to do both, is to remain aspirational and have that true North Star, but then always change the goal setting, because life is unpredictable. And more often than not, and now we're dealing with the quarantine, it's going to allow us to, or force us to change and navigate through life on the short goals, right? So always have that true North Star in mind, but adapt. Being adaptable along the short-term goals is very, very important along the different stages. But what if trust
we just went over much too quickly is that Mark won one of the most important awards in professional sports. And I think the Premier Lacrosse League is the only league that gives out a best teammate award. The NFL doesn't. They'll give out most valuable player. But a best teammate award, not on his team, for the whole league. And one of the reasons he was the best teammate in the whole league is because his teammates trust him. And one of the most iconic things that happened last year in the Premier Lacrosse League is Marco's on the field and he's defending his goal and your stick broke, right?
Yes.
And then what happened? I mean, his stick is just not functional.
Well, I stayed within the play, and this is something that went viral, but one of the offensive players stepped into a 90-mile-per-hour step-down shot, and I stayed in front of it, and I blocked it with my back. So I've been asked multiple reasons why I did that, but there's like I talked about before, we talked about trust, but commitment is really the reason. I've communicated all along the way with my family, my closest friends, and then I have a team that becomes a tribe, because a team has a common goal, but a tribe is people that believe in the same thing. That's service of others, right? And I had a character coach one time 4 years ago by the name of Coach Adam Silva that talks about the definition of me as a man is made up of 3 things, and that's my character, relationships, cause greater than self. Character, relationships, and cause greater than self. So we talked about the trust and building trust within a group, between 2 people or in a team, but the commitment side of things is much deeper, and it goes much further beyond your closest relationships and your character. There has to be that North Star that I just talked about, that you're doing it for the sake of leaving a lasting impression or legacy. The way, in the words of Ben Ives, when you go out of this world, you're leaving behind a song. Do people want to listen to that song? Do you want to change the tune of that song? Do you want to change the words of that song? Do you want to change the chorus within that song? Right? And we're all writing that song all along our way, right? Whether it's quarantine or not, right? The reason I named this Competing with Your Former Self or Prior Self, the inner journey to excellence, is because the external often lies, right? I see a question in there: what if trust is broken? My answer to that is have the doors to your heart and your soul open inward, not out, right? Rather than looking out for approval, look inward. Go to the woods, do some breathing exercises, learning strategies from the best in the world that talk about breathing exercises, right? Become more in tune with who you are and why you're here, right? Mark Twain says the 2 most important days of your life: the day you're born and the day you figure out why. right? But all along the way, that song is being written, right? And you can always change that song, right? I know that's a long, convoluted answer as to why I jump in front of shots. But really the answer is, I know that the fourth one of Robin Sharma, help others, right? I know how I feel by helping others. I'm helping myself all along the way, if not more, right? So I'm making sure that when I go out, whenever that might be, I'm writing that song all along the way. And I want to be able to play it back a million times, right? So that's legacy. When it comes to me, it's not doing something for the sake of getting it done. It's doing it above and beyond, because that leaves an impression, right? Doc, why don't you talk a little bit about successful versus significance? Do you mind?
Not at all. Especially if you're a coach, you have a choice. What do you want at the end of your career? Do you want to be successful, or do you want to be significant? So your success will die when you die, all your wins and all your trophies, but your significance will live on well after you're dead. It will live on in the lives of other people. Um, Mark and I teach at Montclair State University, and Buzz Aldrin is the second man ever to step foot on the moon. He was an astronaut, and he was also a football player at Montclair High School. Well, way back in 1969, when they had the moonshot, when the United States, actually landed 3 men on the moon, all of the dignitaries, the president, the Supreme Court, there was a special place down at Cape Kennedy in Florida where they could view the space shot. And they gave each astronaut 3 tickets. So every astronaut had their mom and dad there. But Buzz Aldrin had his mom, his dad, and his high school football coach. He gave the 3rd ticket to his high school football coach. That's how you know, when you're a coach, you're not just successful, you're significant. And you don't have to be a coach. As a team player, is it going to be about success or significance? I mean, the more TEAM, together everyone achieves more. Together everyone is so could you be the best player on your team? That's great if you're the best player on your team. But how about being the best player for your team? So what if you're the best player for your team? Then you're really, really being significant and not just successful.
So one of the things, thank you, Doc. One of the things that I want to combine a couple of these questions here. I see, what is a great takeaway that you have? What if trust is broken? And what do you do to build your confidence back after a long-term injury? And I've been through long-term injuries, so I know what it's like. One of the ideas that I've taken this from Dabo Sweeney, and I don't know who he heard it from, but football coach at Clemson, is, I said it before, faith over fear. So inside your belief system, right, fear is false evidence appearing real, and faith is being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you do not see, right? But it's both your internal belief system, right? And I heard this before, and I really love this metaphor. The same thing that blows out a candle extends a wildfire. The same thing that blows out a candle extends a wildfire, right? So what does that mean? What are we made of, right? How easily we put out. If somebody chooses to cross us and breaks our trust, if we have a long-term injury, are we going to be blown out like a candle, or are we going to use that to build our narrative internally, have so much logs on the fire to extend like a wildfire, rather than allow negative adversity to blow us out? And where I want to go with this, and it's a way of answering my biggest takeaway from all my experience, is understanding the power of the mind. The mind quits first. And what do I mean by that? Is it's so powerful that Dr. Nick was even saying this at a webinar last night, is if I were to say the words fruit or steak, right, you'll have a response. Your brain will have you salivating right now, and you will for the next 3 minutes. But if you continue to think about fruit or steak, that can go on as much as 7 minutes, and that's from Dr. Nick. And what that shows is the power of the brain and the mind are very, very, very powerful, very powerful. But in that same way, when you go to bed at night or early in the morning or at a peak energy state for you, you know if you're a morning person, afternoon, night, right? That's up to you. Personalize that. That's you. Honor your special. Rule number 1 for improving self-love with Robin Sharma. But the power of the mind works in both ways. And what I'm going to take this from Life is Magic by John Dorenbos, a simple book in which he deals with extreme adversity early on in his life. And what he says is choose positive self-talk rather than listen to yourself. We have 60,000 thoughts a day. 80% of them are negative unless we choose to reverse that tide through mental training. We're 7 times more receptive to negative energy. What does this mean? This means that if we can go throughout our day writing positively, writing gratitude, speaking positively, I am strong, I will be better, right? One of the questions I want to leave the group with is, can I control that? Can I control that, right? Those 5 things that are always happening within our body, our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts, our physiology, our performance. What can you control? Can you control your emotion? No, right? That's the roller coaster that you're not in control of, right? But you are in control of your thought life, right? You are in control of your response. Event plus response equals outcome, not event equals outcome, right? So what I would challenge you is to understand so deeply the power of the mind, especially in quarantine season, right? But you are not your emotions. You are not your feelings. You are your thoughts and your actions. So can you control that? And if you can control that, use those peak energy states to listen to yourself and then change that tide by talking to yourself positively. And what happens is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I will become better. I will achieve this. That will happen. I am strong, right? Act it until you become it.
Well, I'm going to end my part with a little riddle, okay? Because as we said at the very beginning, if our talk is just thought-provoking, it's worthless. Hopefully it's action-provoking. 3 frogs are sitting on a log. 3 frogs are sitting on a log. And 1 frog decided to jump off the log. Here's the question. 3 frogs are sitting on a log. 1 frog decided to jump off the log. How many frogs are left on the log? And I told this to enough classes to realize that most people will say, oh, that's interesting. 3 minus 1 is 2. No, the answer is 3. Because just because that frog decided doesn't mean it did it. It's a big difference between decision and action. So right now you might just say, oh, well, as a result of this talk, I'm going to decide to da-da-da. No, actually do it. Don't just see, when your decisions equal your actions, you're going to be incredibly successful, because most people's decisions do not equal their actions. So how are you going to end this, Mark?
I'm gonna end this by giving everybody a simple task, right? And it'll go back to the rule number 3, go to the woods, but it doesn't have to be that far. I'm gonna ask people, no matter where they are, I know you can't go far, it's quarantine and all that, but I'm gonna ask people to go to the end of their street, just to walk down the street and back, not with their phone, not with any technology or anything like that, and really have a conversation with yourself. That might sound ridiculous, but you can control that. And I think by the end of that walk, you'll come back after talking to yourself positively and coming to really absorb this conversation, because you can control that walk. And on that walk, I want you to think about what you want, right? Most people go throughout this life not deciding, I want that. So on that walk, make a decision on what you want. And when you come back from that walk, you'll have a better understanding on what you decide to do, and then let's act accordingly towards it. Thank you so much for joining me, Doc. You're awesome.
It's a pleasure. Hello to your parents.
Thank you, everybody, for listening in. Your Lacrosse League hat. Thank you for wearing that.
Well, you don't have one. I have to wear it, you know?
There you go, Kathleen.
So Crystal Boy is one of Brian Kane's people. He's at a private school in Florida. He's a long distance runner. He has some long distance running stories.
Thank you, Dorian. Thanks, Julian. So extreme, right, Doc?
Extreme, thank you. Yeah, this is the first time I ever realized it was this old, you could read it.
Awesome.
Best thing I've heard all quarantine.
Thank you, everyone. Doc, thanks again.
Okay.
I'm gonna end it now. Is that okay?
Let me just give me a second. I work with Coach G. Reach out to Tampa Bay. Okay. I'm all done. Are we doing another one of these?
Dr. Sorry, thank you very much. I'll be on again next Friday. Be well, everyone.